Then she let her hand fall, and the light faded, and suddenly she laughed again, and lo! She was shrunken, a slender elf woman clad in simple white, whose gentle voice was soft and sad. "I passed the test," she said. "I will diminish, and go into the west, and remain Galadriel." Hey everyone, Yoisten here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are taking a look at what the test of Galadriel was, and how she passed it, as noted in the book and movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. Sources for today's video may be found in the description and cards, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Galadriel was, of course, one of the Noldor, proud and powerful, living in Valinor during her youth, catching the light of the two trees in her eyes, even as her hair reflected their beauty. Her power came from her lineage, yes, being the daughter of Finarfin, who was the son of Finwë, but also it was just in her body and spirit as well. She was athletic, skilled, and of an Amazon disposition while doing such things, yet she was also proud and mighty in the nature of her personality and spirit. While she found and in some ways embodied the grace of Valinor, she personified the unrest of the Noldor, their desire to rule their own lands and kingdoms in far-off Middle-earth, the lands from which they came. She wished to order lands of her own accord, which led her to follow Feanor, being even a voice of pride and passion for leaving Valinor, though she still did not like her uncle Feanor, and quite heavily disagreed with him personally. This pride persisted throughout the First Age, even unto its end. When the pardon of the Valar was offered to many elves, it was not offered to Galadriel, and her ban remained, nor did she wish to take a pardon if it was offered. Rather, that desire to rule still burned within her, as she had spent most of the First Age serving Melian and Doriath, or with Celeborn, and not in rulership, as her heart had so desired. And so she stayed in Middle-earth, gaining more of a following along with her husband Celeborn, eventually coming to live in Lindornand, eventually Lothlorien, after the Malorn trees were planted. They had for a time ruled their own following under the command of Gil-galad in Eriador before coming to Rhovanion, and it seems that Galadriel probably wished to rule away and apart from Gil-galad, not under his influence. Despite there being a kingdom in Lothlorien for a long time, well into the Third Age, eventually that place of leadership was left vacant, and Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn established themselves there. Finally, in a place which contained a small amount of Noldor, mostly Sindar and Sylvan elves, Galadriel had acquired the land that she truly wished to rule, and could do so of her own accord with her husband. With her ring Nenya, she could see that the realm stayed protected and mighty, like Melian did with Doriath of old. This is, in my mind, where her mindset really shifted, as she became more concerned about Sauron's survival and hope for his downfall, the whereabouts of the One Ring, and so forth, as it all came to be discovered. Thus, when the One Ring was offered to her by Frodo, she did for a moment seem to consider it. How powerful, beautiful, and dreadful she might have been if she had taken it, not denying that her heart did desire such an offer. But as a light came from her own ring Nenya, she rejected the ring and so passed the test, remaining as Galadriel and diminishing into the west. Now, what was her test? Truly, it was her life's journey, as it seems to be for all of us, but one that's more specifically given to her by Mandos and his curse, but especially the ban that the Valar put on her in particular. It was a test made of the trials of pride and lust for greater power, things that had so plagued her in her youth, things that she did not seek for in Valinor and wanted in her dominion in Middle-earth. If asked to take this powerful artifact in the First Age and rule over Middle-earth, Galadriel might well have done so, becoming a Dark Lady nearly equal to Sauron in power, if for no other reason than to prove her pride correct and demonstrate her power. She needed to overcome her vital flaws and sins before she could return there, for in rejecting the ring, she must have been able to feel that the ban of the Valar was lifted from her, and she could finally return, and wanted to return and diminish as the elf she always was in the West. Now, why did she make that choice? Even if she hated him, she was alike to Feanor, who, of course, was brought to his own end through such vices. And what happened to Morgoth and Sauron, and also to Saruman of the White Council, who sought the One Ring himself. Her rejection of the ring also happened in the wake of Gandalf the Grey's disappearance in Moria and subsequent death. It's my belief that Galadriel probably learned some measure of pity and humility from Gandalf, believing that he should be the chief of the White Council, and really learning from the fact that he wasn't, and who he was and what he stood for. Perhaps we could all look at the influential figures in her life and see that they had such an effect that this was going to be the inevitable outcome for Galadriel. Galadriel was nearly the equal of Sauron already, and ruled the land of Lorien as she had wished to, but she must have known in so many more ways than one that the time of the Eldar was fading, and it was time for her to move on as well. Past her ambitions, past her pride, past it all. And so she passed the test. And if Sauron was to be defeated, he would be the last dark being of great evil power that would be left to the world, and it would fall to her to diminish into the west. One might even see this as the true final end to the doom of the Noldor, which I kind of like. The end of the curse of Mandos at last. For she rejected the temptation that many other elven nobles, Noldor nobles, might have taken also in earlier ages, leading to their ultimate demise. In some ways, she also gave up rulership easier than her husband did, who expanded the borders of Lorien and ruled over some remaining elves for a few years well into the Fourth Age before taking a ship, perhaps the last ship, into the west after all. Galadriel would likely be far happier and more content with Valinor in the end than she was in the beginning, having proven to herself and others that she could and did rule over her own realm, and still, when presented with the choice to rule over all of Middle-earth, rejected it, and remembered her own humility and place in the world. And so, my friends, we come to the end of our tale on what was Galadriel's test. From this tale, we see that we are all tested. We must pay close attention to when the time comes for us to prove ourselves worthy of passing, especially proving it to ourselves. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on Galadriel's test? Let me know in the comments below. I like how subtle of a subplot this is, and how it aptly brings Galadriel's greater journey, her course in mortal and godly realms, together in The Lord of the Rings, which is really the end of her tale. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Wed or United Cutlery, Lord of the Rings sword statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch and Patreon. Join our memberships and Patreon for access to our Discord and monthly podcast. Thanks to our Valor Tier patrons and YouTube members, Brian Hunley, Peter Shepard, John Hume, Reese Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Thank you all so much. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on how I believe most of Morgoth's creatures did not have spirituality nor free will. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.